Yeah, we'll end up taking probably about 3 tests over this topic. Remember, this coming Friday, we have another test that won't be over quadratic. Remember, we need 1 more test grade, and I want to have that in before the end of the 6 weeks. So we'll have that one on Friday, understood? It'll be something different. I'll talk about it, I'll prepare you for it. Okay, so for this first one, let me just ask you just to kind of help build these words in. Minimum or maximum value? Minimum, because it's obviously the lowest. Which if I have a minimum value, that means that my A value has to be what?
1.
A can never be 0. A has to be positive.
1.
Positive because it's going up. I'm not asking what it is, I'm saying is it positive or negative. It has to be positive because it's opening up. We don't know what the actual A value is yet. We'll get there. We're not there yet. Okay. We know that in order to find domain, it has to be all of the possible x values. Do we understand that? Now, this particular one has these blocked off by putting the points on there. If the points are not on there, we're going to assume that it's an arrow, and that arrow is going to continue on forever and ever and ever. Do you understand? Now, domain, for this particular problem, the smallest x value that I have is going to be 0. And the largest x value that I have is going to be 4. Do I understand that? My range, the smallest y value that I have is -3. And the largest y value that I have is +5. Are we okay with those ideas? Yes, no? Again, because of the points here, that is what solidifies this for me. If the points were not there, we're going to assume that the arrows go on forever and ever and ever.
So how do you write that out if it goes on forever?
We'll get there. These ones all have those. I'll make one up here in a second. All right, so again, x value goes from my smallest point. So if I were to draw a line from here, I see that my smallest point is -2, and my largest point is a +6. We're all okay with that? So my domain is going to be -2 is less than or equal to x, because the domain is the x value, and x is less than or equal to 6 because 6 is the biggest x value. Range is going to be the exact opposite of that. We're going to take our lowest point, which is -2, all the way up to my highest point, which is +6. Let me ask you this. Is this a minimum or a maximum point? And does that mean the A is positive or negative? Okay, good. Good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and jump down to when we have the parabola going the opposite direction. Okay, so here we go. Now we have a parabola that is opening downward. A parabola that is now going down. Meaning that this point has to be a maximum because that's the highest point it could be. And therefore the A value has to be negative. Good. Okay, for my domain, again, nothing changes even though the parabola is facing down. It's still the same idea. My smallest x value is -1, and my largest x value is +9. So that means that anything in between has an x value. There's an x value all the way through because the line goes through all of those points. And then for my y value, my highest point is 4, and my lowest point is -6. We're all okay with that. All right, I'm going to scroll down because I want to show you what it looks like now if we don't include the bulleted points. So we're going to ignore, there we go, that's a good piece right there. We're going to ignore the actual answer choices over here, okay? So don't look at this piece right here. And we're going to change this open circle to become an arrow. Does everybody follow what I'm saying so far? I have changed this to not be an open circle, it's now an arrow. First of all, minimum or maximum point, which means my A value is positive, okay? My domain for this particular problem is going to be all real numbers. Okay, anybody tell me why the answer is going to be all real numbers for my domain, Brian? Yeah, because if I continue the trend of what's taking place here, so if I follow the line, that line is continuously going outward. And if I follow it this way, the line, once again, is continuously going outward. And if those arrows mean that it goes on forever and ever and ever, all that's implying is that those lines are going to keep going outward and keep going out forever and ever and ever, which means that every single x value for the history of mankind, both positive and negative, could be a possible value. Are we all okay with that? Anybody not understand what I'm saying there? Okay, so domain is forever and ever and ever. Range is similar. If my x values are going up and up and up, well, doesn't that mean that my y values are also going up and up and up? But there's one slight change to that, or there's one slight rule to that. By having this minimum point here, I know that I'm never going to have a y value less than what? I'm never going to have a y value less than -6, which is why we write it just like this. Y is greater than or equal to a -6. We know it can't pass the -6, but y can be anything above that number. The reason on the earlier ones that we had two numbers was because we had a starting point and an end point. Now we just have a starting point for the domain. I'm sorry, for the range. The range has a starting point and then it goes on forever and ever and ever. The domain automatically goes on forever and ever and ever because it's not a sideways parabola. Okay, does that make sense? I want to also tell you this before I forget. We will never have a sideways parabola in this class. It's always going to be either up or down. There will never be a sideways one in this class. It will always be up or down.
Do they exist though?
They do. You'll get sideways ones in Algebra 2, but for this class you will only have them facing up and facing down. Okay? Alright, last one. I'm not going to give you the answer on this one, but I'm going to convert both of these to arrows. So these are now both going on forever and ever and ever. I want you to try to come up with a domain and range for me. We got your way in just a second. Just try to think about those. Alright, anybody got an answer? Hey, what do you think the domain is?
All real numbers.
All real numbers. Anybody think I'm for the domain? Evan, what do you think?
Wait, I thought you said
Domain is all real numbers. What about range?
anything less than or equal to 8.
Anything less than or equal to 8. Does that make sense? Alright, here's what I want you to do. Go to your reflection real quick. Go to the next page in your notes. Just go to the reflection. Okay, here's all my question is. It says, which graph represents a function with a range of all real numbers greater than or equal to -6? Which graph best represents a function with a range of all real numbers greater than or equal to -6? It's not asking anything about the domain. I'm only asking which graph represents a function with a range of all real numbers greater than or equal to -6. Raise your hand when you have an answer. I know it sounds tedious, but I just want to make sure I'm not cutting anybody off before I try to discuss them. Katie, what do you think? C. Does anybody disagree? Okay, let's talk about it. First of all, range means y. This has -6 on an x value. Can we agree? This has -6. This has -6. This is on my x value. So now we're down to either B or C. Can anybody tell me why we distinguish and say that C is correct where B is incorrect? Katie, go for it.
Because on B, it's like the maximum is -6, and it's saying if it can be greater than.
Beautiful.
And on C, it's like the minimum is
Good. Good. Feel pretty good about domain and range on this. Okay. This is a big part of the unit. This is a big topic. This is about as detailed as it gets, so I just want to introduce that to you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the lesson today, so I'm going to stop the video. There is